I think it's really interesting, like one of the things coming to Blizzard and coming to the Diablo team and seeing a lot of the kind of way that they do testing. You know, there's a phrase that's used a lot around soup tasting, which is this notion of, oh, we're going to put it together, but you always have to taste the soup, and does it need more salt? Does it need more flavor? Did we do too much of something or not enough of another?
You can't eat this soup standing up, your knees buckle.
And this is probably, I mean, I've been making games for like 22 years now, and this D4 is the game that I felt like has been more holistically tested than any other game I've been a part of, because it's really part of the philosophy of Blizzard and of this team in particular, to be able to go in and be able to go, okay, we can play from beginning to end, let's play. And so whether that's, oh, the whole team is getting the ability to bring the full game at home over Christmas to play it and give feedback. And then the notion of we're going to allow the entire company at Blizzard to go and play it and give feedback. And now we're going to allow all of ABK to go play it and give feedback. And we just went through Friends and Family, which is all of ABK plus their friends and family to go play it and give feedback on the full game. And now we're going into endgame beta, which is going to be even more, because we went out and looked at who are people who are engaging with the previous Diablo games and sort of the rich endgame systems that are there, and we want to hear what they think of D4. And then we're going to be going into open beta, you know, next year, where we're going to be, you know, trying to crush our servers and trying to get as much feedback as we can there. And so all along, as part of this iteration, you know, and on top of that, we're doing global insights and user research, and we're doing surveys and bringing people in for user testing. So a lot of this iteration is not just us sitting alone in our offices coming up with a new idea. It's born out of feedback from the blogs, feedback from people playing, whether it be on the team, to the company, to friends and family, to there's just a lot of inputs into it. And it's really, I think you can see that if you've been part of it over the last few years, you can see that iteration and refinement happen because of those tests.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned endgame beta. This is one of the first times that we've tested, like, how to test specifically for the end game. And the reason we think it's really important is because, you know, we've talked about how Diablo IV is a live service, how we have really exciting things to come with seasons, how they're going to be really big and crunchy and meaningful. So, you know, it's really important, not just to support that, but also because we know that we have so many players who enjoy playing Diablo for, you know, way past the campaign, really getting into the end game systems. And so this gives us an opportunity to, you know, test the end game systems before we get to launch, and then make adjustments. You were talking about players getting through the D2R very quickly. Yeah. So this will give us an opportunity to sort of test where we are with that early enough before release that we can make some small adjustments to endgame systems, and really make sure that when the game comes out and players finish the campaign, there's some content there that has had some testing against it and had some adjustments made, so they're not beta testing it at launch.
Yeah, I mean, Diablo is a systems game, right? That's what we talk about. Like, you know, look at my experience with D3. I played D3 for hundreds of hours, like literally hundreds of hours, and I've played the campaign in D3 probably twice.
Stay a while and listen.
And so that notion of, like, yeah, it has to be a kick-ass campaign. You have to have great context and great story, know what it is, why the world is the way it is, and set it all up. But you're unleashing players after they complete the campaign. You're unleashing them into a game that hopefully will entertain them for thousands of hours. And so in the past, we really haven't had that opportunity for people just to go into it and say, okay, this is the starting point, because this is certainly not the end. This is not where, like, this is the beginning of where this live service becomes, and that 1,000 hours starts, not where it ends. And so, but we want it to feel rich, because we're going to have seasons, and you're going to have seasons that are going to change up the game. And so, you know, there'll be lots of stuff to add incrementally as we go. But we want to know that when that person finishes the campaign, that they immediately have something really cool to go and do, and start to engage with those systems even more fully as they work their way to beat that level 100 boss. We've been trying to be a little cagey, just because, you know, one of the things that we're still working through is when you work on a live service, the notion of what you want and when you want it, the pressure starts to change. Because when you're building a game like we are now, there's really a lot of focus is on what you want, like what's the right game and how do we get the right quality and all the features that we want to have. And so we set our date based on making sure we can get what we want to be considered what D4 should be. But when you start that train of now we're a service and people are expecting seasons, where you, I think, succeed on players' minds is having consistency to know, oh, every 3 months there's a new season coming. And so if you go like, well, my ambition is I want to do a little more here, so it's actually going to be 3 months and 3 weeks, and then you start to lose that promise to the player and they don't know when to predict or how to think about it. And so our intention is to have a heartbeat, is to have a cadence of content that players can rely on and know is both from a season perspective and from an expansion perspective. And so that's something we're working towards. So as we're still in the finishing touches of development and we're still working through that, how do you build a season to ensure that you can deliver it in a timely way with the right scope and quality? That's why you're hearing a little softer language than saying it's definitely every 3 months and da-da-da-da. But I think when you look at historically what has happened, like those sorts of things is generally quarterly seasons is where it feels good from a Diablo perspective. And so I would say like up to 4, but we're trying to allow ourselves a little leeway, especially the transition from shipping a game to transitioning into a live service is one of the hardest transitions, I think, because you have a team that's just come off of shipping a game. There's an immediate demand for making sure that you're ahead of the game for live, for more content that's ready to go. And there's always this pressure to pull from that content, those people to come and work on the main game. It's like, why are you over there? I could use you over here. And so that transition from game to service is a really tricky part of that development. And so that's kind of why you hear a little bit of softer language until we get through that transition, and then that language will harden quite a bit.
The design of D3 seasons is certainly a foundational element for us here. One of the really cool things about D3 seasons is that you get a fresh start with every season. You get that opportunity to try, if we're talking about how different all the classes are, you get to try a different class or try a different build per class and try it in an environment where there are changes to the meta or other changes. And where we see that going with Diablo IV is not just changes that we can do. Rod spoke about having a team of people who are working on that. So it's not just changes that we can do to the meta, but also additional features that can come in, with seasons, and really making them change up the gameplay of Diablo in meaningful ways and exciting ways, and having exciting new things to check out every time. So.
Yeah, what I love about seasons too is it allows you to test things and try things. And so if something's working, as opposed to, oh, we're only delivering a game every X years, and so you don't have that ability to sort of refine and iterate over time. And so we can try a thing in seasons and go, hey, what do we think about this? And people go, oh, this is my new favorite thing in Endgame, and we're like, oh, really? Okay, well, we're going to keep it now, and we're going to go and do something else. Or, oh, we can refine things that maybe, it just allows us to play a little bit more. But I love, what I think brings a lot of people back for D3 is that fresh start that Joe talked about, that notion of, oh, you've changed the meta and I want to kind of go and experience that progression again, but maybe as a different class or with the same class with a different build, because there's new skills or new legendaries or new ways to experience the game. And I think that's going to be a big part of our season sort of thinking as well, is okay, how can I come back and revisit this and play it in a different way, in a different class with new features and new content. Because where we're at right now is we're moments away from endgame beta going. And I think that's, again, as Joe talked about earlier, that's the first time that we're really doing this kind of a test. And it's part of this soup tasting, it's part of that, do we need more salt, do we need more pepper kind of thing.
All right, give me a taste. Oh my God, I gotta sit down.
But we're feeling really good coming off of all the other tests that we've had. Again, we've had the ability for a lot of people to play from prologue to epilogue, and that's that. But one of the things that's hard to capture is when you think about endgame, when we talk about people who play for hundreds, if not thousands of hours in the game, it's really hard to get that kind of testing, because you get, okay, you're playing a beta, you can play for a couple of weekends or you can play for a couple of weeks, and you're not necessarily putting in 1,000 hours or whatever, right? And so we wanted to have a time to just soak in that experience. Okay, there's no campaign for you. You're just all you have are the things that'll be available to you in endgame, whether it be Nightmare Dungeons or Helltide or PvP or the Whisper bounty system. Like, these are things that we want to make sure can really hold up for players that once they finish the campaign. And that's a really exciting place to be. You know, like I said, to have a game that's been playable from prologue to epilogue for so long is really different for me. It's really refreshing, and it's really been about how we continue to polish and bring it up and bring it up and bring it up and find those iterations. And it's been also really interesting that with the philosophy of the Diablo team to be able to talk to players quarterly. Historically, I haven't done that. That's not something we've done, is sort of brought them along on the journey. And testing has tended to be like, here's a multiplayer beta for some weekend. It hasn't been, hey, we're going to get beta testing on the whole game. We'll let you soak in it for 100 hours and tell us what you think, kind of thing. And so that's really been informative from a design perspective, but that's kind of where our big push is now. Like, we feel good about where we are with the campaign. A lot of it is implemented, a lot of VO is implemented. We're sort of finishing up the cinematic part of the story.
Blessed Mother.
We're honing in on making sure the end game is where it is. We're making sure that we have things in place that we've already started, you know, season 1 work, and those sorts of things, so we can be prepared for when the players finish, that they're ready to be able to, you know, have more there waiting for them when they finish the campaign and the first season starts. So I don't know, is there like feeling good right now, honestly?
I think that's a great summary. I mean, it's a very exciting time for Diablo IV, and it's an exciting time for the franchise overall.
Creator of Sanctuary, hail!